الحمد لله حمدا كثيرا طيبا مباركا فيه كما يحب ربنا ويرضى وصلى الله وسلم على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وأصحابه وسلم تسليما كثيرا وبعد يا أيها الناس. As we come to a benefit, inshallah tabarak wa ta'ala, with the tremendous reminder that we all are in need of, inshallah tabarak wa ta'ala. So we want to mention some statements in regards to the kalimat يعني of tawheed, kalimat of tawheed, la ilaha illallah. We want to mention some benefits in regards to this beneficial and lofty statement. As we come to the first category, which is knowledge. And here it is mentioned that la ilaha illallah. You must know the meaning of la ilaha illallah as opposed to being ignorant of it. As opposed to being ignorant of this statement. So the Muslim, after him testifying to the statement la ilaha illallah, it is a must that he inquires or acquire the necessary knowledge so that he can worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You must know the meaning of la ilaha illallah as opposed to being ignorant of it. وقال جل وعلا فاعلم أنه لا إله إلا الله. So know that يعني therefore that there is no God but Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That there is no God that deserves to be worshipped except Allah جل وعلا. وقال الله سبحانه إلا من شاهد بالحق وهم يعلمون. But those who bear witness to the truth while they have knowledge of it, they bear witness to the truth, they recognize it, they understand it, and they have knowledge about it. So it is a must, showing you that it is a must, it is obligatory for the person to acquire knowledge or have knowledge about la ilaha illallah. And he who died knowing full well that there is no God but Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he will enter Jannah, as it comes in a hadith collected by Muslim, من مات وهو يعلم أنه لا إله إلا الله دخل الجنة. He who died knowing that nothing deserves to be worshipped except Allah, he will enter into paradise. And so the correct definition of this kalimat, of the statement la ilaha illallah, so therefore one must ask, what is the meaning of la ilaha illallah? The correct meaning it is, there's no true God that deserves to be worshipped except Allah. There's no true deity. There's none that deserves to be worshipped except Allah Jalla wa Ala, the true God. The reason why the true God, it is mentioned, must be included in a definition is that there are many false gods. There are many gods that people worship and they take them as their deity. They take them and they worship them as their Lord, as their Lord. Na'am. So it is mentioned. So therefore one must include true God in defining the statement. So the following are pieces of evidence to prove, as Allah Azza wa Jalla, He mentions, له دعوة الحق, and to Him is the true, and to Him is the true call, and to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala we call on Him, we call on Allah Jalla wa Ala alone. له دعوة الحق ذلك بأن الله هو الحق وأن ما يدعون من دونه هو الباطل. And this is because Allah is the truth, and that whatever they invoke besides Him Jalla wa Ala, it is false. And it is mentioned in the hadith that some of the Sahaba would say the talbiyah, that here I am, لبيك إله الحق لبيك. نعم, here I am, O Allah of truth, O God of truth, here I am. And this is collected in Nasa'i. وَمَاذَا? So this is imperative, obligatory for the Muslims, or for the Muslim to know the statement and to worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala by it, and to call on none but Allah, to single Him out in all forms of worship. And so we will mention some definitions that is wrong in regards to this statement, La ilaha illallah. wrong definition of La ilaha illallah. So here it is mentioned the following are some of the meanings that people have suggested of La ilaha illallah due to their ignorance of this beautiful statement. There's nothing that exists except Allah. This is what some individuals say. This definition is false. It is given by people who believe in the aqidah of wahdatul wujud, which means that everything is God. And thus, everything such as a human being, stars, the moon, the tree, could be worshipped because Allah is everywhere. Wa'iyadhu billah. So these individuals, they have the wrong concept and the wrong understanding. And from amongst those who have the wrong understanding and a definition of the statement La ilaha illallah, they say, there's no God but Allah. So this is also false, because there are many false deities and false gods that are being worshipped other than Allah Jalla wa Ala. Na'am ya ayyuha al-ikhwa. So this is a must for us to learn and to seek knowledge, so that we won't fall into these errors, so that we won't fall into committing acts of bid'ah and innovation. And also another statement that is wrongly defined or mentioned by these people, or the people who make these wrong statements, there's no creator but Allah. This statement in itself is correct. Naam, there's no creator except Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, but it is not the purpose of La ilaha illallah. This was believed by the disbelievers. So if this statement meant only there's no creator but Allah, then there was no necessity for the disbelievers to fight the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, because they never objected to Allah as the creator. Naam. So this statement is correct, showing you that individuals, the disbelievers, they recognize that nothing deserves, that none has the right to be worshipped except Allah. They knew that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala was the true God. They knew that He exists. But however, they was the ones who fought against the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So all of these definitions are wrong. The correct definition, according to the Salaf al-Salih, is there is no true God that deserves worship except Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So the statement, La ilaha illallah, is based on two pillars, negation and affirmation. And as in regarding to the negation, La ilaha, there's no true God that deserves to be worshipped except Allah, it is mentioned you have to negate all of the false gods. You have to negate all the false gods and deities, and negate worshiping things and worshiping other than Allah Azza wa Jalla. So you have to negate these things, such as the angels and the messengers and the trees and stones and human beings and the saints. So this statement, La ilaha illallah, is showing you that all these particular objects and things has no basis, has no right to be worshipped. And Illaah Illa Allah, except Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Meaning, the only one who deserves worship, the only one who deserves to be worshipped is Allah Azza wa Jalla alone. So after affirming it, one must also act upon it. So after the individual, he accepts his Islam, he takes the Shahada, he bear witness that none has the right to be worshipped except Allah, and that the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam is his servant, is his slave, and his messenger, then it is upon him to act upon that. It is upon him now to learn what it is that he has to do, to learn what it is that he must act upon from statements and actions, ya ayyuhan nas. So therefore, for one's La ilaha illallah to be accepted, one must both negate and affirm. He must negate that none of these things deserves to be worshipped. All of these things are worship upon falsehood, such as we mentioned, such as worshiping other than Allah Azza wa Jalla, like angels, like messengers, and trees, and stones, and human beings. وَهَكَذَا يَا أَيُّهَا النَّاسِ, that he must negate this. And then the person, he must affirm that only Allah Azza wa Jalla deserves to be worshipped. So negate that there's no other true God that deserves to be worshipped, and affirm the worship for Allah alone. So this makes the statement much stronger. Instead of merely affirming Allah to be one true God. Instead of just saying, yeah, only God deserves to be worshipped, only Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala deserves to be worshipped. But rather he makes these these affirmation and negation. He combined these affairs. And he makes this strong. Instead of merely affirming that none has the right to be worshipped except Allah. Instead of just affirming that only Allah deserves to be worshipped. So, نعم يا أيها الناس. As it is mentioned, it very deliberately requires a commitment of the non-belief in any other deity. That the person don't believe in any of these false deities that deserves to be worshipped. So this is why if a person only negates and doesn't affirm, he is an atheist. If he negates something, if he negates like just saying, oh no, I don't believe that particular thing to be, that particular thing has the right to be followed or to be worshipped, I don't believe in that. He just negates it. So if a person only affirms and says, I worship Allah, I will pray the salat, I will give the zakat, I will fast, but I will not negate worship to other than Allah. هذا ليس جيد ليس صحيح. Then such a person is a mushrik. Because this person, he knows, he has some knowledge in regards to only worshiping Allah alone, but he doesn't negate worshiping other than Allah. This person, he prays. This person, he fasts and he prays and he gives the zakat, but he still worships other than Allah Azza wa Jalla. So a monotheist, he negates and affirms. That's what makes him a monotheist. So one who understands the meaning of La Illaah Illa Allah is never seen calling out to other than Allah or directing acts of worship to other than Allah. And we want to present some evidence of negation and affirmation. The evidence for the two pillars of La Ilaha Illallah, negation and affirmation, are mentioned in many verses in the Quran. وقال جل وعلا فمن يكفر بالطاغوت ويؤمن بالله فقد استمسك بالعروة الوثقى. Allah Jalla wa Ala, he mentioned, whoever rejects evil and believes in Allah has grasped the most trustworthy handhold. And that is affirmation. Or that is the proof that whoever rejects evil, whoever rejects worshiping other than Allah, whoever rejects this of calling on other than Allah, worshiping other than Allah, slaughtering for other than Allah, وهكذا, and he believes in Allah Jalla wa Ala, he has grasped the most trustworthy handhold. وماذا, and we will mention a negation. As we mentioned, we will mention some proof of negating and affirming, an affirmation. Well, Allah Azza wa Jalla, it is mentioned, فَمَنْ يَكْفُرْ بِالطَّاغُوتِ, whoever rejects evil. Whoever rejects evil. This is the proof. Whoever rejects of calling on someone other than Allah or worshiping someone other than Allah, as we mentioned. Negation, la ilaha. He negated of worshiping someone other than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. وَيُؤْمِن بِاللَّهِ, and he believes in Allah. He affirms that none has the right to be worshipped except Allah. So he worships Allah Jalla wa Ala. So Allah, he says, and Ibrahim said to his father and his people, I do not, I do indeed clear myself. إِنَّنِي بَرَاءً مِمَّا تَعْبُدُونَ إِلَّا الَّذِينَ فَتَرَنِي. I do indeed clear myself of what you worship, meaning I worship only him who created me, Jalla wa Ala. So Ibrahim negated those things that his father was worshiping. And he mentions, I only worship. He affirmed the Tawheed. He affirmed this statement, Illaah Illa Allah, or La Ilaha Illa Allah. Illallah, Naam, except Allah. That he affirms of worshiping Allah Azza wa Jalla alone. Because he is the one who created him And this is Allah Jalla wa Ala is the one who created us. So it is upon us to worship Him alone. As it is mentioned, was taken from this statement, from this ayat, Illaah Illa Allah. Only Him who created me. Only Him who created me is an affirmation of Ilallah. It is an affirmation of worshiping Allah Jalla wa Ala. And as it is mentioned also, Innani bara, I do indeed clear myself. This is a negation of La ilaha. This is a negation of La ilaha. This is a negating that no one deserves to be worshipped except Allah. Only He created me. And this is the affirmation of Illallah. This is an affirmation of Illallah, of worshiping Allah Azza wa Jalla. وقال الله سبحانه وتعالى وقضى ربك ألا تعبدوا إلا إياه. And your Lord has decreed that you worship none but Him. And as it comes in this ayat of negation, إِلَّا تَعْبُدُوا, you worship, na'am, that I worship none but Allah, or you worship none but Him subhanahu wa ta'ala. And this is negation, la ilaha, negating, afwan, that the person, Allah ta'budu, that he is negating, that none deserves to be worshipped, illa iyahu, but Him subhanahu wa ta'ala. And this is an affirmation that only Him Jalla wa Ala deserves to be worshipped. So, وَقَضَى رَبُّكَ أَلَا تَعْبُدُوا إِلَّا إِيَّاهُ. أَلَا تَعْبُدُوا is a negation. You are negating that none deserves to be worshipped. None has the right to be worshipped. None deserves to be worshipped. إِلَّا إِيَّاهُ. And this is an affirmation. إِلَّا Allah, except Allah Azza wa Jalla. Naam ya ayyuha al-ikhwa. And we will take another statement, another benefit. As we mentioned from the beginning, we mentioned the first one was knowledge. Knowledge of the meaning of La ilaha illallah. So we will mention number 2. Bi'idhnillahi ta'ala. So certainty. Certainty is the sense that the one who says these words is certain of their meaning. And you should have no doubt whatsoever in your heart. And you should be 100% sure about La ilaha illallah. So one who doubts this word is not a believer. If you have doubt about La ilaha illallah, you are not a believer. وقال جل وعلا إنما المؤمنون الذين آمنوا بالله ورسوله ثم لم يرتابوا. نعم يا أيها الناس. Only those are believers. Only those are believers who have believed in Allah and His Messenger and have never doubted about this. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he mentions in an authentic hadith collected by Muslim, أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وأن رسول الله لا يلقى الله بهما عبد غير شق فيهما إلا دخل الجنة. وكما قال عليه الصلاة والسلام. I bear testimony, or I bear witness to the fact that there's no God but Allah, there's no true deity that deserves to be worshipped except Allah. And I am His messenger, the slave who would meet Allah without entertaining any doubts about these two fundamentals will enter paradise. وقال صلى الله عليه وسلم, the Prophet صلى الله عليه وسلم called for Abu Hurairah. He said to him, من ماذا لقيت ومن لقيت من وراء هذا هائطا وهذا هائطي شهادة أن لا إله إلا الله مستقينا بها قلبه فبشره بالجنة. Whoever you meet behind this wall, who bear witness that there is no God but Allah. There's no true God or true deity that's worthy of worship except Allah Jalla wa Ala. Believing in it with certainty in his heart, that gives him the glad tidings of paradise. Rawahu Muslim. So this is a benefit of these two statements. And we mentioned the first statement is knowledge that the person must have, a knowledge of these affairs, a knowledge of La Ilaha Illa Allah, and knowing, understanding that individuals, they have a false interpretation or belief about the statements of La Ilaha Illa Allah. Some of them make these false statements about Allah Jalla wa Ala. So it is upon the Muslim to seek knowledge and have knowledge of these affairs. And also, we mentioned about the affirmation and negation. We mentioned about the affirming, the affirmation, and the negating. And it's for you to go back and to go over that which we mentioned. And also, we mentioned about having certainty in Allah Jalla wa Ala and not having any doubt. Not having any doubt about Allah and His Messenger. So this is a small benefit we want to remind ourselves, inshallah tabaraku wa ta'ala. So it is upon the Muslim to seek knowledge, inshallah ta'ala. Make this something that is important in your life. Make this something that is important and dear to you. So may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make it easy, and may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala increase us all upon bir and taqwa. And inshallah ta'ala we will come back and we will mention the next statement. We will mention the next statement is acceptance and submission. Inshallah tabaraku wa ta'ala. Wa sallallahu wa sallam ala nabiyyina Muhammad.